23XI Racing just announced their third full-time Cup driver for 2027, and nobody's talking about what that actually means for the guy who built this team. Bubba Wallace hasn't lost his seat, but he also hasn't had his contract extended. And those two facts, sitting right next to each other, tell a story nobody at 23XI Racing is ready to say out loud yet. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to where it all started. 23XI Racing launched in 2021 with a partnership that genuinely turned heads across the entire sports world. Denny Hamlin, one of NASCAR's most decorated active drivers, teaming up with Michael Jordan, the basketball legend who stepped into Motorsports ownership after years of watching the sport from afar. When they needed a driver to anchor the program, they turned to Bubba Wallace. He wasn't just a hire. He was the foundation. Wallace was the first driver ever signed by the team, and from day one, he carried the identity of 23XI Racing on his shoulders. What followed was a story worth telling. In the fall of 2021, Wallace delivered the team its very first victory at Talladega Superspeedway, a win that meant everything for a brand new organization still figuring out what it could be. Then in 2022, he won again at Kansas Speedway, proving that first win wasn't a fluke. He was building something real. The relationship deepened. In September 2024, 23XI Racing announced that Wallace had signed a multi-year extension, locking him in as the driver of the number 23 Toyota going forward. At that moment, his future looked as secure as anyone's in the garage. But Wallace himself acknowledged the road hadn't been smooth. Heading into 2026, he was direct about the previous stretch. "I got my ass kicked the last 2 seasons, plain and simple." He arrived at 2026 talking about being hungrier and more competitive than ever. For fans who'd followed that arc, that kind of honesty felt like a reset, like a driver who understood exactly where he stood and was ready to answer the challenge. He came into 2026 motivated. Then the season happened. Let's be precise about what Wallace's 2026 actually looks like on paper, because the numbers are where this conversation gets real. As of mid-season 2026, Wallace has posted 338 points, 6 top 10 finishes, and only 1 top 5 across the entire campaign. His average finishing position sits at 18.429. Over his last 6 races at that point, he ranked 29th in the entire field with an average finish of 22.2, including a 4-race stretch where he finished 20th or worse in 3 of them, totaling just 34 points across those 4 events. He's also carrying 12 DNFs dating back to last season. As of the latest standings update, Wallace sits 13th in the Cup Series, holding a 69-point cushion above the chase cut line. He's safe, but no longer comfortable. And there's a significant difference between those two things, especially at a team that's now operating with championship-level expectations. Now compare that to what's happening on the other side of the 23XI garage. Tyler Reddick opened 2026 by winning each of the season's first 3 races, becoming the first driver in NASCAR history to win the year's first 3 races since Dale Earnhardt Sr. in 1987. He went on to win the Daytona 500. He won 5 of the opening 9 races of the season. On April 26, 2026, Reddick signed a multi-year extension to remain with 23XI Racing as driver of the number 45 Toyota. By late May, he held a 122-point lead in the championship standings. Reddick put it plainly himself. "It's way better than being down on points to first. It's a great spot to be in. Naturally, our confidence is in a really good place." By the season's halfway point, Denny Hamlin, who competes in the Cup Series himself, had closed that gap and passed Reddick by a single point. But the larger picture hadn't changed. One 23XI driver was rewriting NASCAR history. The other was fighting to stay above the bubble. Now add a third car, and suddenly the math gets uncomfortable. This is where the story shifts. Corey Heim is 23. He's from Georgia. He's been part of the Toyota racing family since 2020 when he competed in the ARCA Menards Series. And by any reasonable measure of what a development driver is supposed to accomplish before reaching the Cup Series, Heim has done it all, and then some. He made his first NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series start in 2021. By 2022, he had his first Truck Series victory. He went on to win a total of 25 Truck Series races, which ranks 4th most all-time in the history of the series. He is the 2-time Truck Series regular season champion and the 2022 Rookie of the Year. Then in 2025, he capped off his final full-time year in the Truck Series by winning the championship, setting a record of 12 wins in a single Truck Series season along the way. Heim began his relationship with 23XI Racing in 2024, serving as the team's reserve driver and competing in 1 race at Nashville's Superspeedway. In 2025, his role expanded to 4 Cup Series starts, including a 6th-place finish in the fall race at Bristol Motor Speedway. In 2026, his schedule increased again to 12 total Cup Series starts in the number 67 Toyota. Then on May 30, 2026, at Nashville Superspeedway, it became official. 23XI Racing announced that Corey Heim will compete full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series starting in 2027, driving the number 35 Toyota Camry XSE, the same car that Riley Herbst piloted during his rookie 2025 campaign. Denny Hamlin didn't hold back when describing what he thinks Heim represents. Generational drivers only come by every now and then, and I firmly believe that we have one here. So I'm really excited about what he's going to bring our team and the performance that he's going to bring, and obviously his work ethic is very, very good. Heim himself, speaking at the announcement, made clear what this moment meant. Since I was 5 years old, all I ever wanted was to be a Cup driver. My family and I have sacrificed a ton to get me to this level, and I don't take that for granted. When the opportunity came up to be a development driver with 23XI Racing, I trusted my gut and knew this was the place I wanted to build a long-term career. A generational talent walking in the front door. And the question nobody's saying out loud, but everyone's thinking, does that change what's behind the other doors? Here's where the quiet detail enters the picture, the one that stopped fans mid-scroll and started the conversation that hasn't stopped since. Fox Sports insider Bob Pockrass reported that Bubba Wallace is expected to return in the number 23 car for 23XI Racing in 2027. Read that sentence once more. Expected to return. Not confirmed. Not announced. Not extended. Expected. That single word carries a weight that a formal announcement would not. If Wallace had already signed an extension, there would be a press release, a team statement, a quote from Jordan or Hamlin. Instead, what exists is an insider's projection, which, to be clear, carries real credibility, but it is fundamentally different from the security Reddick now has with his signed multi-year deal. Hamlin, when pressed publicly about driver futures heading into this stretch of the season, offered this. Driver questions are not something I'm focused on right this second. That's a reasonable answer for a co-owner in the middle of a championship race. It's also the kind of answer that leaves a gap. And gaps, in the NASCAR off-season ecosystem, get filled with theories. The fan theory goes like this. A third car signals that 23XI is hedging. That Wallace's production no longer matches what a two-car championship operation needs at every seat. That a rebuilt lineup for 2027. Reddick locked in, Heim arriving, and Wallace on an option year, could eventually shift the balance of resources, attention, and long-term investment in ways that aren't yet visible on the surface. 23XI expanding from 2 to 3 full-time cars at the exact moment its second driver is experiencing his worst statistical stretch since joining the team is a timing question worth examining honestly. Because this conversation deserves precision, here is exactly what is confirmed and what is not. What is confirmed? Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports reported that Wallace is expected back in 2027, a direct, on-record insider statement from a source with a consistent track record of accurate 23XI coverage. Corey Heim is confirmed full-time in the number 35 starting 2027, replacing Riley Herbst. Wallace's 2026 on-track numbers have declined from his 2025 averages. Tyler Reddick has signed a multi-year extension. No formal contract extension for Wallace has been publicly announced. What is not confirmed? There is no report from Pockrass or any other credentialed NASCAR insider indicating Wallace is being pushed out, that his seat is in jeopardy, or that Hamlin has lost confidence in him. There is no reporting that the number 35 car was built to eventually replace the number 23. Everything beyond the Pockrass report. The motive, the intent, the internal dynamics, is fan interpretation, not journalism. That line matters. It doesn't make the conversation less valid. It makes it more honest. One thing the raw narrative around Wallace's numbers can obscure is the actual texture of the 23XI garage, because this is not a team with visible tension, and the quotes from inside the organization reflect that clearly. At Kansas Speedway in April 2026, during the overtime restart that sealed Reddick's 5th win of the season, Wallace was running behind him and described exactly what he was trying to do. "Oh yeah, I'm like the 11. Run the 45 up. Let me sneak through and do that. I definitely did. And then I thought we were going to be able to capitalize, but it wasn't meant to be." Reddick, reflecting on his historic start to the season, put the Earnhardt comparison in perspective. "I mean, that's a guy on the Mount Rushmore of NASCAR drivers. He said 1987 was the last time that happened. I mean, that was generations ago." On Wallace, Reddick has been equally genuine. "I feel like some of his strengths are stronger than mine, and going forward, it'll be nice to work with him and hopefully I can learn from him. Wallace's own words about Heim's arrival were straightforward and warm. He'll be competitive for sure. He'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited for him. He's come to me for a lot of questions and advice over the last couple years that we've worked together. It's been really good. And when asked about Riley Herbst, the driver Heim is replacing, Wallace didn't skip past it. Riley Herbst is one of the best, genuine dudes to ever be around. One of the most humble kids ever, and I've always enjoyed our conversations together and our time spent together. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm pulling for him in every aspect and his future endeavors. None of that reads like a locker room drifting apart. It reads like two veterans and a rising star pulling in the same direction, which is exactly why the business side uncertainty lands differently than it would at a team with open conflict. Here is where everything stands right now, stated plainly. Wallace has a 69-point cushion above the cut line. He is in the playoffs, not dominant, but present. Reddick's championship run isn't slowing down. Hamlin himself is now pushing Reddick for the points lead, adding yet another layer to a 23-11 story that has already produced more storylines in 2026 than most teams generate in a decade. And Heim's confirmed arrival means 23-11 will field 3 full-time Cup Series entries in 2027, a level of expansion the organization has never operated at before. Every resource decision, every engineering allocation, every conversation about the future of the program now happens in the context of a 3-car team. That's more complex than anything 23-11 has managed before. And Wallace, with no confirmed extension on the books, is the one variable in the equation whose long-term position remains publicly unresolved. Nothing here confirms he's losing his seat. But nothing here rules it out either. And that gap, between expected and confirmed, is exactly where this story lives right now. The second half of 2026 will either answer the question or deepen it. Wallace knows what he needs to do. 23-11 knows what it's building toward. And NASCAR fans, as they always do, will be watching every single lap between now and the moment someone makes it official. Drop a comment. Is 23-11 growing around Bubba Wallace, or quietly growing past him? Subscribe so you don't miss the answer when it comes. Because it's coming.